Hey, class. It's Mr. Cutshaw here. So today we're going to be working our way through some new Excel functions. Now, before we start here, make sure all of you open up the Excel functions document I send over to you. And you're going to be working through this as I go over it in class here. Now, once you have it open here, we're going to just start off with some vocab. Now, first off here, we got some different terms. We have PV, rate, MPER, and PMT. Now, might seem like a lot at first, but trust me, we're going to break it down here. We're going to make it super easy to understand, okay? Now, first off, we're going to start here with PMT. Now, PMT, what it does is it calculates the payment of a loan based on constant payments or a constant interest rate. So this is what, for example, a bank would use when you take out a loan. So, for the example here, you had a loan of $100, and there's your interest rate. And what this is all figuring out is the monthly payments. Now, looking at our other definitions here, PV. So PV, it's the present value or the principal. It is the starting value of our loan amount. So, you took out a loan of $100, your present value or your principal would be $100. It's the amount of money you started with. Then you move on to rate. Now, rate, that's your interest rate. So that's how much money you're paying, uh, per month or per year. So how much that money's compounding. Lastly, here we have MPER. That's our number of periods. So that's how many times during that month that it's, or during the year that it's accruing. How many times it's multiplying. Now, this is going to make a little more sense once we start typing it in. So click over to PMT practice here, and we're going to walk through an example of typing in a PMT function together. Okay. So first off here, just like any other function we've done before, type in the equal signs. And then for this function, it is a P, an M, then a T. And then you don't need to capitalize them. I do. I think it just looks a little bit nicer. And we're going to make our bracket. If you don't remember how to do that, hold down Shift and push 9 to get the bracket in. Then we're going to click here on FX. Now, what this is, once you type that in, the equal signs, the PMT, and then our bracket, you can click up here on FX. And what it does is it's a little bit of a cheat sheet. Instead of having to, type in a function, you can click the FX and it does this. Now, for all functions, it's not like this. There's some that you have to type in manually. However, for the ones we're going to be going through today, you can click in on the FX to make it easier for all of these. So to start off here, first we have our rate. Now, if you ever get confused while we're going through on what a term means, you can see down here, down on the bottom right here, it has a little term, a little definition for each one of these. So you click in an MPR, it has the definition of MPR, same with PV. And then, of course, you can go and reference the previous slides if you still can't remember by looking at the definitions right here. So first off for rate, that is our interest rate. So what we're going to do is we're going to click here because we have an interest rate of 4.5. Then we're going to click down to MPR. And so MPR, that's our total number of payments for the loan. So our total number of payments for the loan is 60 because we're going to make a total number. So periods, our total number of periods is 60. Then for our PV, for our present value, so how much money did we start with? Well, we took out a loan of $5,000. Now with this, we're almost done. However, if you look over at our numbers over here, our interest rate is in terms of years, but our periods is in terms of months. So what we need to do is we need to, make it so that our interest rate is in terms of months. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide it by 12, or we're going to divide it by the number times it compounds each month. Now, once we have that all down, we're going to go over here. We're going to click OK. Now, what we have here is we have $93.22. So this is the right number. However, you see it's red. So what it means when a number is red is it means it's a negative. So what you can do, just like I did there, double click in on the number, and we need to make this number a positive number. So if you think back to when you were working with negative numbers in math, you had sometimes you had to make a negative number a positive number. So let's say you had a -2 and you need to make it a +2. So what you do to do that is you take -2 and you'd multiply it by a -1. So two negatives make a positive, right? So if we want to make our negative number a positive number, we need to multiply it by -1. So how we do this is we multiply it by negative. So what we do is we put our negative sign in between the equals and the PMT. So this is like we're multiplying our entire formula here by a -1. And once we do that, you can click enter. And now our 93.22 isn't a negative anymore, it's a positive. So, and that's how you do the PMT. But if you want to do a little bit more, you want to figure out, okay, so what's the difference between how much, loan I took out? I took out a loan of $5,000, but by the time I pay it back, so how much did I end up paying? Well, what that is, that requires a little bit of, math here. So what we do is we're going to take 60, our number of periods, and we're going to multiply that by our 93.22. Now, why we're doing this is because we're making this payment of 93.22 every single month, but we're doing it for 60 months. So multiplying them together, we will get our total of $5,592.91. Now, if you don't want to do the quick math in your head to figure out the difference there, you can just take this number right here and subtract it by the loan amount. So you take, our new total spending and we subtract it by how much money we initially took out, and we'll figure out the difference. So what you ended up doing there is you ended up paying an extra $592.91 due to having to pay that yearly interest of 4.5%. Now, hopefully this is making sense to you, and we're going to move on now to FV. Now, while PMT, that was figuring out our how much we're paying per month, what FV is it's figuring out our future value. So it's figuring out the returns, the future value of an investment is going to make based on periodic and constant payments and a constant interest rate. So if you're to use this in real life, what this would be is this would be like you had a savings account. You put in an initial amount of money, and then maybe each month you're putting in $10, or you're putting in some additional payment into there. So that's what future value is used for. It's used for finding stuff with like compound interest, or with a constant interest rate. So looking here, you should see pretty much the same terms, except now we have PV. Now, or not PV, PMT. We had PV before, but PMT, if you recall, is how many additional payments you're doing each month. So, while your present value is how much money you paid initially, our PV is our, additional payment. It's how much we're paying additionally. Now, we're going to click over here to practice, and we're going to type out a quick formula, okay? So what we're going to do to type it out, we're just going to click into here, going to type our equal sign, and then we're going to type FV, because this is a future value function, an FV function. And we're going to get a little bracket in there. And just like before, we can click up here to the FX and can get our little cheat sheet up. Make it a little bit easier for us to type in. So first off, for our rate, for our interest rate, That's going to be of 10%, right? However, just like before, we got to do a little bit of something with this number. It's not just a yearly interest rate of 10%. No, that number is going to be compounding for two uh, compounding for 2 periods per year. So we need to divide that number by 2 because it's going to be compounding twice a year. So the reason we divided by 12 last time is because it was compounding, 12 times a year or once a month. And this one instead is compounding twice a year. So we're dividing by 2. Then we're going to go down to MPR here. So for MPR, that's going to be the number of times we compound each year. However, you see here it's for a total of 5 years. So before we just, we got the number of periods, but this time we need to figure it out a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply it by 5. And why we're doing that again is because we need to figure out our total number of periods. So instead of just what we had before of just getting the number, we need to do a little bit of math here. So it's going to be 2 periods for 5 years. So that's 2 times 5 for a total of 10 is what it'll amount to. And then lastly, we're going to go down, or not lastly, but second to last here, we're going to go down to PMT. Now, in the previous slide, we had, a PMT of, I believe it was $10 a month. For this problem, we're not adding any extra money. We're just adding money initially, and we're seeing how much it'll be after the resulting 5 years. So since we're not adding any extra money each month, it's going to be $0 in the PMT, or a value of 0. Then lastly, for the PV, we're going to put in the 5,000 because that's how much money we added initially. That's our initial sum of money. That's our present value. Now, once we have all that in, we're going to just click here to OK. Now, as you see here, just like before, well, we have the right number, $8,144.47. That is the number we're looking for, but it's red. It's negative again. And we need to make that number a positive. So just like before, we're going to double click in on here. And then in between the equal signs and the F, we're going to put in a negative or a minus sign because we need to multiply all this by a -1 just to make it a positive number. And now we have our positive number of $8,144.47. Now, hopefully this is making sense to you. And we're going to fly right along. We're going to move over to PV. Now for PV, this is to calculate the present value. This is to calculate the PV. So the PMT was to find the PMT, the FE was to find the FE, and the PV is to find the PV. Now here, PV, if you remember before, when we were in PMT and when we're in FV, PV stands for the principal value. And here, it stands for the same thing. It stands for the principal. It stands for the present value. Then the rest of the terms we're using here, the PMT, the rate, the MPR, you should be sort of familiar with them because those are the same terms we were using before. So we're going to move over to PV practice here, and we're going to type this in together, okay? Now, first here, just like any function, again, type in the equal signs, then our PV, our little bracket here. And once you have that in, your equal signs, PV and bracket, we're going to click up here to FX. Now, once you have the FX, we got our little cheat sheet up one last time here. And we have our rate, MPR, PV, and some other ones we're not going to be using for right now. However, in some future lessons, we're going to add a little bit more complexity to these. Now here we have, first off, our rate. Now, just like before our rate or our interest rate, here it's just 3%. We're not adding any extra doodads or yearly or monthly or anything. It's just our interest rate is 3%. Then for MPR, our number of periods for this is 22, And then lastly, for our payment, or how much money we're paying each period, it's going to be $50,000. So once you have all that, we're going to go down here to OK, and we're going to click it. Now, just like before, we got a negative number. We want to turn that into a positive number. So we're going to double click here onto our value. We're going to put a minus between our equal signs and our PV. And remember, this just multiplies all of what we had before by a -1, bringing our total out to 793 or and $96,845.83. Now that we have all that down, we're going to move over here to our in-class assignment. Now, for this, all you need to do is pretty much what we did before in our practices. So you're going to need to solve here for PMT, here for FV, and then lastly over here for PV. Now, once you have all this down, make sure to save the document down to your computer and submit it into the Dropbox. Now, if you have any questions, anything you didn't quite understand, just contact me, message me. I'll be available to answer any sort of questions you have working through this. Feel free to send in any questions or concerns you have, and I'll make sure to get those answered as quickly as I can. Now, best of luck to all of you. And again, if you have any questions, send them over to me, and I'll try to get them answered as quickly as I can.